Our meat. The strong eat.
So welcome back, guys. We are still talking the Terror Infamy. This week was episode 7 that aired, and I'll be honest, there's not a whole lot that I feel like sharing on this one because it felt kind of anticlimactic. And last episode I was saying that too much happened in that small amount of time, that we revealed so much information, and I felt that they could have spread that out throughout the next 4 episodes, and this would have been a good one to take some of that information that we learned about last week and put it into this one, because it just felt very much of like an aftermath effect of what happened at the end of last episode, thinking they've all stopped the Ure, and here we now have Chester, which is going back to his family history and finding out that he has a twin brother. He's reaching out to Luz, and all while that's happening, you have the Ure that's trying to trace back to finding Chester and Luz, pretty much more than likely to kill Luz and to have Chester all for herself. But that's just my theory of what I think is going to happen or what the Ure wants to do. But tell me, guys, in the comments below, if you're still watching it like I am, where do you think it's going to go? And did you think the same thoughts that I did about this episode? Because as I said, I just wasn't feeling it this time, and with all the build-up that we had last week, it just feels like, where is this show going to go now that there's still 3 episodes left after this one? And I mean, there are some positive to what we saw this week. It begins with the Ure, which is actually a really cool scene. Probably my favorite scene in this episode is when it opens up and you see this doctor, and I was reading online, it's actually an American doctor, and he is working on the remains of the body, which was from last episode when they burnt it in the house, and the Ure looks like it's possessing the doctor to perform the surgery in order to put the remains back together. So the Ure, Yuko, that was the one I was trying to think of, she is now back to life again, and she is now determined to get what's rightfully hers, and that is Chester. And it just seems that it plays out in a way where it makes its way back to the camp, and it possesses the Major Bowen, I think that's his name, and he is now possessed, and he's taken captive by a Japanese American there, and it's all this chaos happens within that time frame in the camp. And while all that's going on, you have Chester, and he is with Luz, and he's figuring out what's going on with this twin that he now finds out that he has, and my guess is that he's going to go looking for him. But it just seems that nothing really of real importance happened here, except that we know that the Ure is still hunting Chester, and I mean, we have to find that out, of course. That's pretty important, but to have the most of this episode revolve around that, it wasn't really grabbing my attention. And to find out that Chester had a twin brother, I mean, that's interesting too. But that's another thing that we could have had some other information or other storylines going on within this episode, because those are really the 2 main things that happen in the 45 minutes of this one episode. I will say this though, I am very happy that Luz is back in the show again. We didn't see her last week, and last time we saw her, she was a bit going crazy there, but it looks like she's a bit better than what we saw before. Her dad's still concerned with her because she doesn't go out that much, and she even tells her that she needs to do more with her life, and I think she was really just depressed about everything that happened, that she's no longer with Chester. And that's another thing with between them two. It looks like the father was hiding the letters that Chester was trying to send to her, and vice versa for Chester, that these letters were neither sent or given from the other person, and that's what makes Chester making that first attempt to leave the camp, and he's obviously stopped by the soldiers. He escapes again in order for these two to see each other again, and I think that's well needed for both of them, because they're both facing some type of thing in their life where they need each other right now, and they're reunited, but it looks like they're now searching for this twin brother, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, I don't know if we're going to see another twin of him in the next few episodes or not, but all we know is that the Ure eventually tracks down to where Luz and Chester are, which is where Luz's family is in New Mexico, and that brings us to the final scene where, unfortunately, Luz's father is killed by the Ure. And I gotta say, even though this episode wasn't the best, that last scene was probably the hardest thing to watch, because the pen that he was writing with when he was possessed, when the Yuri possessed him to pretty much write down where Chester and Luz are at, the pen gets stabbed right in his eye, and I knew it was going to happen as soon as he was done writing. And of course they couldn't show it, but even the thought of that happening was just horrible to even think that way. And that's the last shot, with the blood coming out of his eye that's leaking onto the map, and you can see the blood is slowly reaching its way to the circled area of where her father kind of circled in where Luz and Chester are, which was a nice way to end it. But I don't know. I just think overall this was not really an episode that was the best. If I had to rank all these episodes for the show, this would probably be on the bottom. And I just said this before, like, there's not really much to say about what happened here. Everything I already mentioned, that's pretty much it. And there's really not much else I can think of. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode? If you're agreeing with me that this episode was kind of so-so. And tune in also this Wednesday or Thursday. I'll have my review of For American Horror Story, Episode 2. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Stay tuned for more to talk movies where anything is possible.